Hey Stargazers, welcome back to Skywatch Weekly. This week we've got the summer solstice. We'll look at what that really means and also what it means for your stargazing experience. So let's jump right into Digistar here. This Saturday, June 20th, is the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, the longest day of the year. And after this, the days get shorter and shorter until the winter solstice in late December. The question is, though, why is that? And what's changing to make that happen? When we talk about the seasons, we talk about the tilt of the Earth's axis. In the summer, the North Pole is tilted toward the sun, and in the winter, it's tilted away. This is technically true, but it makes it sound like the Earth is flopping around in space, one bad turn away from tumbling uncontrollably end over end. But it isn't. The Earth's axis is relatively stable. We talked in the video on May 6th about the northern sky and how it doesn't really change that much during the course of the night and even throughout the year. The same stars are visible in the northern sky every clear night in Chicago. That's because the Earth's north pole points almost directly at what we call the North Star, or Polaris. And as the Earth spins, that star stays in pretty much the same spot. 100 years ago, this was the case, and 100 years in the future, it will still be the case. But if the North Pole is pointed consistently at that star, how could it be that sometimes it's tilted toward the sun and sometimes away? Well, keep in mind that spinning isn't the only thing the Earth does. It also orbits the sun. We're looking at Earth tonight near the summer solstice, when the North Pole is tilted toward the sun. Something to notice is that a constellation like Orion and other wintertime constellations aren't visible right now in June because the sun is in the way. Now we'll speed up time and go through 6 months in about half a minute. As Earth orbits, the North Pole keeps pointing at Polaris, and the night side of Earth is facing different parts of the sky. As we get later in fall toward the beginning of winter, constellations like Orion are now on the night side of Earth. And constellations like Scorpius in the summer sky are blocked by the sun. The constellations are seasonal because Earth orbits around the sun. The weather is seasonal because the Earth's axis is tilted. Here you can see the axis is clearly tilted away from the sun on a night in mid-December. But remember, the axis didn't move. It still pointed at Polaris. What did move was Earth around the sun. So what does this look like on the ground? Well, here in the summertime with the longest day, we also get the shortest night. So at this time of the year, stargazing is a little bit tricky. And especially with daylight saving time, you might not get the sky as dark as it's going to be till about 10:30 p.m. in the Chicago area. Because the Northern Hemisphere is tilted toward the sun at this time of the year, you've got shorter shadows at noon. The sun will be at its highest point in the sky, about 71 degrees up here in Chicago. Something that's interesting to note, though, is the full moon, which, as you recall, always appears opposite the sun in the sky. During the summertime, the full moon will be low. You might have noticed this with the strawberry full moon earlier this month. Very low in the southern sky, never getting all that high up. Compare that to the wintertime, when the sun is very low in the sky during the day, with long shadows cast. But at night, a full moon in the wintertime can reach almost the very top of the sky, shining down very bright on the snow. Well, speaking of the moon, this week the moon won't be all that visible, but when it is, it's going to be a beautiful sight. A thin crescent moon will be in the very early morning sky. There was this morning on the 17th, and the next 2 mornings, you get a very cool chance to see this. Venus is reappearing in the morning sky, along with a cluster of stars we've talked about before, the Pleiades, no longer visible in the evening sky, but now, if you're up early enough, maybe around 4:30 a.m., you got a chance to see it. Well, this morning on the 17th, the crescent moon was fairly far away from Venus and the Pleiades. But over the next 2 mornings, it'll be drawing closer. And on the morning of the 19th, the very thin crescent moon will be right near the planet Venus. This will be very low in the sky, very tough to catch. Venus will be pretty obvious, but that thin crescent moon, you might need a little bit of optical aid, maybe some binoculars to catch that. Well, the new moon occurs on the 21st of June. And the 2 nights after that, you've got a chance after sunset, as that thin crescent moon emerges in the evening sky, to catch it. This will be another example where you might need some binoculars to help you find it at first, but it will be near a bright star, Pollux, one of the Gemini twins, Pollux and Castor. You want to look about 30 minutes or about an hour after sunset. Keep in mind, the later you look, the lower the moon will be, as it's setting very soon after the sun. So a stargazing app may help with that in order to find exactly where the moon is. On the 22nd, the moon will be below the line of Pollux and Castor, just to their lower left. On the 23rd, it'll be to the upper left, a lot easier to see, not only higher in the sky, but also slightly more illuminated as it's continuing in its orbit around the Earth. So these views of the thin crescent moon within a couple days of the new moon phase, definitely worth the effort, and that's going to qualify it for our weekly challenge. I encourage you to get out and see one of these pairings of the moon, either in the very early morning at about 4:30 a.m., or about half an hour to an hour after sunset with Pollux. I should probably also mention, on the 21st, this isn't something that'll be visible from Chicago, but you may see some news coverage of it. There is a solar eclipse occurring. This will be visible from parts of Africa and Asia, including Ethiopia, the Arabian Peninsula, Pakistan, northern India, and southern China. This is what's called an annular solar eclipse. A ring of the sun will still be visible around the moon at the time of mid-eclipse. The moon's distance varies slightly from the Earth, so sometimes it's close enough to the Earth to be large enough to cover the entire solar disk, but sometimes it's just a little bit farther away, not quite big enough to cover it up, and so we get this beautiful annular ring. So look for coverage of that on Sunday and into Monday as these images start to be published from areas that are able to see this eclipse. So lots of things going on in the sky as we reach our shortest night of the year. Join us next week. We'll be talking about the summertime sky, especially that summer triangle. All sorts of amazing details to be seen in there. Don't forget to subscribe to Skywatch Weekly and also follow the Adler Planetarium on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.